community of plankton living inside that were members. So the whole idea was I was higher salinity than
Good evening and welcome to the Delta Greene panel for 2019. I want to go ahead and apologize to Adam for blowing out his levels just now. So before we say get started, I want to initially do some thank yous to people who deserve it. First of all, to Adam and Patrick for helping out with audio here. They've done it before, and they're fantastic. And they get paid way too little for the work that they put into it. Yeah.
Oh my God, he's right.
and whose fault is that?
Stock out.
And my own beloved and very intelligent wife Rachel, who is pitching in with audio video herself now.
Wait, we're on camera?
Oh yeah, we're on photos, or I don't know. I don't care. And I also want to thank Jason Fritz. Are you in the audience here? Did you skip? No, Jason. And Nico Adamarco, who both pitched in at the last second and with very little forewarning to run games for us when the GMs couldn't make it. So, way to step up. Thank you. All right. And last thing, I want to say a congratulations to our friends Ross Payton and Maddie Gibbons, who are engaged now. So they neither one of them is here, obviously, but they may hear the clapping on a recording at some point, and then they'll get the full benefit of all our emotions.
Guilty.
Yeah, yeah. We thought they were going to be here. So. All right, so with that, thank you all for coming. And as with most, we do this every year, and generally it's a little loose and free form, where we just sort of tell you what's new. And most years, the some of the news is pretty much the same news as we had the previous year, and sometimes it's genuinely new and worth hearing. So let me go through real quick. Things sometimes.
You are entirely too modest. Do you know about a little thing called salesmanship? These books are gonna blow your mind.
Yeah. So we've first. Congratulations as well to our friends at Pelgrane Press for winning the Gold Innie for Fall of Delta Greene last night.
We get those too, right?
Oh,
Which
yeah.
is the I did.
I did.
Which is the
This seems ominous.
which is the by my count the 11th Innie Award that we won for Delta Greene over the last few years, which is nice.
Yep.
Yeah.
Ours did go to 11.
It does now. And so they're working right now on the Borellus Connection, which is going to be their campaign coming out of the fall of Delta Greene, which is sort of this 1960s long form
Drug heist.
it's the case
right?
of Charles Dexter Ward meets the French Connection. Yeah. So that's with Gareth Hanrahan and some other
Who is awesome.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
pretty much every year I say something to Gareth along the lines of, "Hey, can we hire you for some stuff?" He's like, "Oh yeah, sure." I'm almost doing a fake Irish accent because his accent is so Irish, but that would be awful.
He seems like he's faking it. It's so ridiculous.
Yeah, it's very lucky.
Yeah.
It's full on Lucky Charms.
It really is.
But we still love you.
Yes.
Have you read the Gutter Prayer?
Yes.
So,
No, I have a copy of it, but I'm too lazy to read it.
It's one of those
it
books
good?
where I'm like, oh.
Yeah, Greg got the snip because it was so good.
Yeah. little bit of jealousy.
One of those snits. All right. So way to go, Gareth.
Very happy with the word
Way
snit.
to go, Garrett.
Yeah.
St. Stolze crap. You're proud of yourself.
That's kind of how we approach everything in Delta Greene. We can.
Yeah, they just show it to me, and if it
Single
gets
tier.
the single tier, they're like, let's
right.
send it back until we're at full subs.
Yeah. So new things for Delta Greene. We have just gotten out the hardback, speaking of which, of Control Group by Mr. Greg Stolze. a book that's been in the works and going back and forth for surgeries many times.
It's like when you put a rock in one of those rock polishers, and the more you send it through, the more cycles, the more pure and shiny it becomes.
It's either going to wind up shiny or it's just going to be dust.
I think we stopped before dust.
I think so. So if you don't have that in hardback, that is at our booth while supplies last. And if you back to the Kickstarter, the RPG Kickstarter at the end of 2015, you have the PDF for that for free. So look that up, and then you'll enjoy it and say, "Golly, I wish I had the hardback too."
And you too can cry.
Yeah. We've got an updated edition of Victim of the Art that's out in paperback. Dennis's scenario from Countdown way back in the day.
I wrote it when I was 11.
And
You only looked 11.
right. And that's probably not at the booth anymore. I think we sold out of the paperback of that one, but it's available online.
Good.
Yeah. And we have the it's not strictly Delta Green, but it's certainly Delta Green. Infectious. The King in Yellow, the annotated edition, is at the booth. And if you don't have that, then come by and smell the genuine leather. And
Smell it, I say.
Yeah. And so that's if you don't know, that is a deluxe edition of Robert Chambers' original book, The King in Yellow, the collection of short stories that inspired all of us all these years, with annotations by Ken Hite, going through who did amazing research, a lot of which that had never been done before, digging up what was going on in Robert Chambers' life and where did these ideas come from, how do they relate to each other, what's the connection between the sort of opening ghost story like spooky surreal stories and the kind of Gallic romances that form the latter half of the book. It's fascinating stuff, and it's filled with full color plates and super creepy charcoals by Samuel Araya, who did all this artwork kind of inspired by Chambers, and at the same time kind of drawing inspiration from like alchemy and hermeticism and all kinds of craziness that winds up with this just astonishingly beautiful paintings in the book.
I was impressed by how thorough the annotations were when I opened it to the first page. Saw, dedication to my brother.
Right.
Footnote.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah. So we do have that at the booth. So if you haven't seen that, come by and check it out because it's gorgeous. Yeah. And let's see what else. Things in the works. We have completed manuscripts in hand that we are now going to start hacking at with buzzsaws for both The Labyrinth by John Scott Tynes and Impossible Landscapes by Dennis, whatever your middle name is, Detwiller. Dennis Bob Detwiller.
Let's drop the Bob.
You think?
Yeah, it blows the cadence.
Dennis B. Detwiller sounds like
We can do
I'm
Dennis
writing
Scott,
like inner
Dennis
city.
Scott Detwiller and put a Scott in the middle of everything.
Yuck.
It's true. I never noticed that before.
Yeah.
Detwiller.
So the Labyrinth, again, in case you don't know, was or you were sorry enough to not back that Kickstarter when it happened. No judgment. The Labyrinth is a book by John Tynes that presents a collection of organizations, groups, both protagonists and antagonists, that you're in a campaign, a long-form campaign, your agents can interact with, either investigating them or using them as a source of information or resources or whatever. But by the process of interacting with them, it changes them, and not ever in good ways. And so it really highlights the deterioration that comes to sometimes quite good people from meeting your player characters.
How would you say "we never help" in Latin? That could be the slogan on the next Delta Green patch.
Yeah.
We're not helping.
We're here to hurt. And Impossible Landscapes is Dennis's. Dennis sort of started with John's treatment of Robert Chambers, the King in Yellow, that John started doing in 1990 with the first issue of The Unspeakable Oath, then expanded with Delta Green Countdown in brilliant ways, and Dennis has taken that and run with it in this enormous, complex, interlocking, insane campaign.
It's 263,000 words, which is about the size of the Handler's Guide.
Yeah.
And it was supposed to be about a third of that. Right. Something.
But Dennis had a house payment coming up.
yeah. Unfortunately, I've already been paid for this quite a while ago. No.
And you're still working on it?
Yeah. Of course.
He says, of course.
For the fans.
Well, you're in the list. Like, you're certainly somewhere on the list. No, it was more for me and John argued about the King Yellow a long time ago, and he was like, "We can't write this out." And, he wrote out a little kind of framework for Road to Holly in Delta Green Countdown. I'm like, "This is beautiful. I got to make this a full-on campaign." So it's more for Tynes than anybody else.
Yeah.
You speak about him like he's gone.
Yeah, he is. Have you not noticed?
He is working for WotC now. That's kind of like being gone.
Yes. He turned up by text message. It's like being in an episode of Lost with John. Like, bing, we won the award. He's like, okay. You're like, he's out there in the void somewhere doing stuff.
Right. Yeah.
He went to the wrong floor.
Looking for the mauve zone. And let's see, other things that are in the works. We did a Kickstarter for, this is hardly Delta Green related at all, but it's by us, so there you go. We did a Kickstarter for a goofy-ass card game called Russellnomicon that succeeded and is now almost totally final. I think the only thing we're missing is some art by John Kovalit, and then it goes to the presses and out to backers and out to stores, and it's full of brilliance and
evil,
intelligent humor.
Well, he's trying to convince you there are no poop jokes.
Yeah,
None.
There are totally poop jokes.
I can think of 6 right now.
So it was a lot of fun to work on, and next year we'll certainly have it in hand. And who knows, if it does well, we'll keep making poop jokes for other old ones.
Yeah. No, I desperately want the Neurototep deck out there. Do you even God, bro?
Yeah.
Is one of the cards, and it's just awesome. And
That's the kind of quality
you can
that
expect.
we're bringing to your tables, to your card games. And we have what?
It's okay.
All right.
We're nearing the bottom. Keep going.
Yeah. Oh no, we're halfway, literally halfway down the page.
I'd like to believe that, Dennis.
We're not even close to the bottom.
Greg.
There is no bottom.
We have
If America's taught us anything.
in lots of things in progress. Currently in initial playtest revisions is Adam Scott Glancy's Iconoclasts, which is a Delta Green operation. I think this is another one that we're like, write something that's about 20 pages, and he wrote something that was 100 pages.
Well, it turns out it's a lot more
20,000
complex to infiltrate Mosul when it's occupied by ISIS and deal with a great old one.
Right.
Oh, that.
Make your infiltration roll.
Yeah.
So do you want to say anything about that?
It is tough going mano a mano with a god. It really is.
Are you talking from the perspective of the players or yourself as the writer?
Yes, I am. There's not much to say about it except that I've gotten like 20 playtest reviews back, ranging from anywhere from 2,000 or 3,000 words to I think 1.9 or 10,000 words. People were very
Which
dedicated.
for reference is the length of a pretty solid scenario in its own right.
Yeah, it's 50,000 plus words, and to get a 9,000 word review back is pretty astonishing.
One way or another, somebody cared about what you wrote.
They did. They that one guy really cared.
Cared so.
I'm not. But it's there's a lot of things about it that having sent it out to playtesters that moment, we go, oh yeah, you know what? This game would play a lot better if I came with every book. You know, if they just sent a Scott Glancy out to run it, it would run incredibly smoothly. But unfortunately, I'm sending it out to people.
We're working on the Scott Glancy artificial intelligence CD-ROM to mail out.
Like one CD tops, right? But apparently, when you send something out like this and you don't include every single thing I've ever learned about ISIS or Mosul or Saddam Hussein's Mukbarat or the Syrian Civil War or the place of the Turkish MIT or the Quds Force out of Iran and all these other people who are shanking each other constantly over the same
reality.
Yeah.
What it says. Whenever it references outside, see physical reality.
Yeah. It turns out that you have to provide a lot of information to fill in those holes. And
now we could just put your address and say, come see
call anytime
if you have any questions.
Drop by.
Yeah. Call anytime. I'll just Skype in to fill the holes in the scenario. But and that is required more than anything else. Going back into the scenario and hacking out a lot of Baroque conspiracy and plot and just make this it's a lot more streamlined. When I was running it, I thought it ran smoothly, but when I handed it out to people in the world, they're like, I have gotten lost. I have the manuscript and I don't know who's on what side, who's working for who. Can we try?
It's too real.
So that's something that's had to happen to it, but it should be done in maybe another 6 weeks or something.
The art's pretty much done.
Yeah, and then it's off to another round of play testing to find out if the streamlining worked, or whether I've made it even more incomprehensible than the last time. So we'll see.
Yeah,
cool.
So also in the works, and we are expecting, fingers crossed, a manuscript by the end of the year for Pisces, which our friends Giles Hill and Adam Crossingham and Nick Brownlow and company and Graham Price are working on, that will detail the organization Pisces in the UK and what it looks like these days and how it relates to the various splinters
after it's had a shenectomy.
Delta Green and what became of all those nasty insects. And so that's in the works. Deep State is another one that we're looking at, hopefully having the manuscript by the end of this year. Christopher Gunning has been working hard on that, and very patiently waiting for me to put that on my front burner and start going after his words and making him miserable, and adding some of my own.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the miserable part. I'd like to help make Christopher Gunning
so much more fun doing that part.
Yeah, and then further on, we've got Dennis is going to be working. May have already started working, I think, on Those Who Come After, which is part of the now that Landscapes is out of the way. Those Who Come After came out of the Labyrinth Kickstarter. You tell them.
It's a source book, a threat matrix source book on the Great Race of Yith. The motion, their human agents, and everything they've done in history, which to them is like a mountain that you climb. We'll have 2 scenarios in it. So I've got about 25,000 words right now. It needs to go to about 110.
Not even that
expect
long.
360.
Yeah, it'll be 3 times that. No. So that's definitely coming along.
80 or 90 that's fine.
Pretty good.
It's not going to happen.
And then there's a whole host of short projects that I'm kind of developing and adapting along the way. Future Perfect 3 and 4, and things like Jack Frost that I wrote for Pyramid 20 years ago. And
what the hell is Jack Frost?
Exactly. Yeah.
No, I'm serious. What the?
It's a scenario he wrote for Pyramid magazine for Delta Green.
20 years ago, weren't you even listening?
Yeah.
Is that any good?
I'm going to call that a no. Were you talking about Greg Stolze? Then he wasn't listening. I have to say Stolze or Greg at intervals.
Greg it.
Jack Frost was was like this adventure. The idea behind it was that basically there's this I said it in Moundville.
We're already off the track.
What?
Just tell me the monster.
No.
Damn it.
it's a winter in Alabama, and it's a really serious winter in Alabama. And there's wintry things happening, and your Delta Green team has to go in. And at the time I wrote it, you were competing with the Majestic team that was on the ground trying to figure out what to do with all this nonsense.
Hooray! Now we can go programming outlaws.
Yeah, could be. Or just march technology, or who knows. So that's going to get kind of reworked, and I'll get to go back and reread for the first time in 20 years something I wrote that long ago, and probably start crying myself.
Which is it's always a treat.
You have to call me right after.
I was so young. I used so much future tense. Voice.
Lots of wills and
lots of wills.
Oh yeah. So other things that are happening, we've got Dennis's Patreon is going strong, and you deliver stuff on that pretty frequently,
all the time.
That's become a really useful place for us to post just for Patreon backers, which keeps it kind of private and in the family. Previews, things that we want, just the things kicked around by people that know what they're looking at, first views of manuscripts, just original short little micro knife fictions that Dennis writes so well, and the whole 9 yards. So you can find that, and then we're going to be bringing the Oath to Patreon at long last in the fall. I'm working with Brett Kramer, who is going to start taking more of the editorial load on that. So I'll be serving as editor-in-chief. Brett, unless I hear back from him, I've got like 3 emails from him going over the plans. So unless one of those says "screw you" and your stupid magazine, Brett will be sort of the on the ground editor, and then I'll be the EIC, which means I can do as much or as little work as I want on it. And so that'll be coming to Patreon, and the Oath, when we bring it back online, is going to be more explicitly a Call of Cthulhu magazine. For the last several years, we've sort of straddled the line. We've done stuff for Trail, we've done stuff for Delta Green, we've done stuff for Call of Cthulhu 6, Call of Cthulhu 7. Once we bring it back, I think we're going to keep the focus on Call of Cthulhu, which will help us. That's going to be really helpful in terms of maintaining the theme, keeping our good friends at Chaosium happy, and all kinds of good things. So,
can I mention anything about the short film?
What do you want to say about that?
First of all, that it has absolutely nothing to do with Delta Green. That's the first thing everyone has to know. There's filming that's going to be kickstarted fairly soon. That a friend of mine, Aaron Vanek, a small filmmaker out in Los Angeles, he put together the Yellow Sign film that John Tynes wrote the script for a million years ago.
Yeah.
I remember 8. The Earth's crust was cooling.
He had read over the short story Last Things Last that I had written based on Brett Kramer's Last Things Last scenario that you've all seen because you've all got the keeper screen by this point. Need to know, but we are going to do a non-Delta Green version of this story, if you can imagine such a thing. We'll file all the numbers off so it looks completely legit. But the title, the working title right now is The Final Report of Henry Barrow. And it is essentially some of the same things from Last Things Last, with a few things, many things change. But it's going to be a short film. There'll be a Kickstarter for it. And if you keep up with the Delta Green pages, they might be nice enough to let me cross-post and say that it's happening. And
we'll talk about points on the front end.
I finished the script for it some time ago and ran it past what do we call him? The co-writer, the original founding Brett. I mean, he wrote the scenario, right? So
Brett?
Yes.
Yeah.
I guess we say story by Brett Kramer, script by Scott Glancy.
I just call him Brett. It's the end of Saturday. And Con, we're having
there's multiple vocabulary failures are going to happen during the course of this. But just, I guess it was last night, I sat in my hotel's bathroom while my roommate was sleeping and recorded
This is
some
gonna be
dialogue for the teaser that they're going to be putting out.
This story's taking a turn.
Tell us
With
about,
a bottle of bourbon and
tell us about what you recorded in the
You're
bathroom.
recording.
We all want to hear it.
I'm sure you do. You'll just have to wait for the teaser that comes with the
right.
Kickstarter to hear my melodious tones as ricocheted off the walls of that tiled bathroom. So there.
Yeah.
So that's a thing that's coming up, and then before the end of the year.
Cool. Yeah, Aaron, in addition to his film works, he's for 2 or 3 years running, he did some pretty elaborate LARPs for Delta Green here at Gen Con. So if any of you participated in those,
He's also
where you
written
know
a
him
fair
from.
amount of stuff for Chaosium.
Yeah.
Is he
over
here
the
today?
years.
No.
Didn't
No,
come
he
this year.
missed it.
He's off in the California desert filming the teaser.
Sweet.
Yep.
Bet that's going to be a really good looking Kickstarter video.
I
hope
can
so.
only hope. They spent all kinds of money making constructing a fake child's body wrapped in garbage bags. So we're off to a good start. I presume it was a fake child's body.
Yeah, it's much cheaper to get it. Never mind.
Let's see other things. We've Arc Dream. We've just started releasing a series of D&D adventures, which are for 5th edition. Under the banner Swords and Sorceries. So if you come to the booth, you can check those out. Each of them is very short, like enough for a single level of play. But I've written this first batch in the series. Our friend Kirk Komoda, who is lurking at the very back
right
of the
there.
thing by the doors.
He's
and
the one.
waving at you now.
Get him!
I'll clap for Kirk. Has done fantastically gorgeous illustrations for that series, and it's been fun to work on them. They're kind of, I wanted to basically take D&D and make it more compelling for me, and then I was doing so much work on it. Dennis was like, "You got to earn something off of this somehow. This is ridiculous."
How have you failed to monetize
Yeah.
your hobby, Ivy?
I know. So,
Hey, Shane, one of the things I noticed about it was that there was a pretty strong continental Africa feel to the two scenarios.
second one, yeah,
For the second one. Weren't you doing a bunch of research on the Sudan for another project? Did you just sort of, Did you
Yeah,
sort
that
of
was-
work the Sudanese stuff into this? Or?
No, that was totally. No, because I was doing that on the Sudan. This new thing, it was way more focused on the sort of the Maasai region around. Victoria.
Okay.
It's a little further south. Now the Sudan thing was for a Trail of not a Trail of Cthulhu, a Space 1889 adventure that I did for works.
This explains so much.
Yeah.
Oh,
They
did you get the Mahdi state in there?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
That's what
good.
it's all about. It's like you
Okay,
start
we're
out.
off track. Everybody back.
Yeah.
What
And
about
car.
Delta Green?
So if you go to drive-through and search for 1889 and Ivy,
When
then
did I
you'll
become the
find
dad? Back to Delta Green.
This Mod E thing is fascinating. I mean,
I
seriously?
know I shouldn't be the dad here.
Talk about the
Really don't want me to be the dad at all.
And
Agreed.
yeah,
He's right.
I've seen your parenting. It's not that bad. Okay, so come to the booth, and I will tell you a lot about those adventures and how they came to
Ask
be.
him about diseases in D&D 5.
I just finished that one for Chris for Haunted West, for his Haunted West
Holy
Kickstarter.
crap,
It's going to
man.
be great.
This is all making sense
Yeah.
now.
Your cartomancer has died of dysentery?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You lost two
Oh,
eye
you
teeth.
totally could. Yeah. No, it's going to be like a 20-page bonus chapter in the
Bonus.
PDF. Yeah, that because
That's all these diseases I didn't even pay
if you
for.
need your hardcore western to add that much more suspense, ways to die. There it is.
I'm just looking forward to the gunfight that they have
what
when they're
got
all
your
suffering.
gunslinger?
Yeah.
Was it the Pinkertons?
Yeah.
Was it the natives? No, syphilis.
Yeah.
Hey, ask Wild Bill Hickok. So back to Delta Green.
Hey!
Is that good enough for you?
Yes.
Daddy's proud.
The next announcement I can do before we let this be a little more dynamic is I'm gonna, after I get back from Gen Con, on top of attacking the Labyrinth and Impossible Landscapes, we're going to be attacking a very large pile of translation proposals for Delta Green that I've been accumulating forever and ever. And the poor bastards overseas keep sending me emails saying, please, won't you answer me? So we'll see.
Too dark to see.
We'll see which of them have become so embittered by Delta Green's production habits that they've abandoned us, and which ones cared enough to stick with it.
Yeah.
This is winnowing out the weak ones.
It's very Teutonic.
Yeah.
They're already dead.
Right. There's always new ones. So that's Delta Green. All right. So that's kind of that's my giant list of 30 minutes of announcements.
Jesus Christ, Shane.
We stay busy. So can we answer? What do you guys want to say? Anything? Want to make fun of Greg some more?
No.
No.
Although we were under instructions.
Greg, do you want to make fun of somebody? We always just kind of go after you because you're so Lutheran and patient with it all. But
no. I mean,
actually raised Catholic, so I'm just.
Oh, you got it all. Right.
In the
no.
bank vault of my heart.
Instructed us to rag on Greg. Ken, the gold any winner, was like, you must do this.
Right.
I thought he said you had to attack Scott.
No.
Huh.
We're getting mixed messages.
He might have said both.
He said us both.
I feel like Ken may be trying to set us against each other here.
Yeah.
Perhaps we should realize who the real enemy is.
So does anybody have it? That was awesome. Find who said that. They're promoted.
What did they say?
I didn't hear
They
it.
said Shane.
Oh God! It's like the scene
Nobody
where
picks
you've
on
got
him.
the big conspiracy where
Yeah.
look, the Labyrinth connects to Shane Ivey, Impossible Landscapes to Ivey,
Yeah.
the children, Ivey.
That's what we need next time. I need to remember to bring like a cork board.
Yes.
Make a crazy person.
We need a
board
crazy
behind us.
wall
Yeah.
behind us. We really
We
do.
really do.
So,
Yeah, thank you.
so does anybody have any
Somebody write that down for
DG
me.
questions?
Delta Green. Okay, yeah, I see hands. Do you want to go get him, Patrick? Thank you, Patrick.
Woo, Patrick.
So, with the Oath returning its focus to Call of Cthulhu, have you internally talked about perhaps adopting the community content licensing model for Delta Green?
We've talked about it. At this point we've still kind of decided not to, because we are very jealous gods, and
No.
Is that putting it wrong?
Yes,
Okay, you
that's
tell him
evil. No. What?
All right, it's not that at all.
You know who you're sitting next to?
A little blasphemous. But
Listen, I lived with this man for I don't know how many years.
He's got more guns than I do.
Oh, you don't even know from guns, man.
For our audience at home, he's talking about
Clancy
Scott
was
now.
like the second most well armed in the house.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Let's put it this way.
So anyway-
when our roommate John Crow moved out, he had so many firearms that he left 3 of them behind accidentally. Buried under old printouts of manuscripts, stuck between books and old laundry he didn't want anymore. And as I'm cleaning out the room so we can turn it into a guest room, I found 3 pistols.
hey, motioned again. All
Yep.
right.
I've always wanted an Astra.
So,
this is fabulous.
so Acer, to answer that question, the biggest issue, I helped kind of, I worked with Charles Ryan and Monty Cook Games for a while, and they set up their own thing, and that was awesome. The problem comes in is kind of reviews, reviewing the material and kind of making sure it doesn't veer off into jetpacks versus Cthulhu.
Or the Rape Olympics.
Yeah, or it's something much deeper and much more offensive, which has happened in other shareable items, and that kind of ends up on our lap. But having said that, me and Shane were arguing about it in a hopefully positive way, where I basically said, well, they already do all those shotgun scenario things every year. There's like 80 of them. Mm-hmm. Couldn't really hurt too much. We're definitely thinking about it. It's not dead.
So if
okay.
that we want to publish all the people in this room should just email Shane.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a definite yes.
The real enemy.
Yeah.
Send your emails to no reply at.
But I mean, I will point out that the people who have kind of busted into writing for Delta Green, Warren Banks is one that jumps to mind. Caleb, Brett, have done it by making something so compelling. Like Warren Banks wrote M Epic and just kind of went, oh, I wrote a Canadian Cthulhu organization, and it was just I went in expecting everybody to say and it was just
That's their defense against the great old ones. If you keep saying and sorry, you take a D6
but
less
he
sand.
did such a great job. So I guess another way of doing this is that we love to see new content. That's great. So
So be great.
be great.
Yeah.
Don't not be great. That's my best advice. Writing. No. But we'd love to get something like that set up. But the biggest issue is it's pretty much like the day to day at Arc Dream is me and Shane and Rachel. Mm-hmm. And that
So carving out the time to do reviews.
Yeah. Besides the Space 1889,
even to do a broad.
Are you now attacking his side projects?
yes.
Oh my God.
I put up with all of your video games. This Monty Cook full time.
Side projects keep a relationship exciting.
I think we have some interesting conversations to have with Martha.
That's a different
Okay.
game.
Next question. I'm getting scared.
That guy was next. Right there.
That guy. That's
That
it.
guy.
The gentleman in the blue shirt.
Get the man in the hat.
Do you guys ever record and upload yourselves running or playing Delta Green anywhere? And can we find it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
There's
Where's
plenty
it-
of stuff on RPPR.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
stuff on the.
The
We did a ton of those with the Unspeakable Oath podcast, which hasn't been updated in ages.
Right.
But once we relaunch that, we're going to start doing more of those. There are YouTube recordings where, like Dennis a couple of years ago ran a 4-part Delta Green adventure that I played in, and my friend John Marin and his wife, my friend Kevin. I mean, the audio's terrible because we didn't have the right equipment, but.
We're idiots when
But
it
you
comes
can,
to things like that.
because that's
Also, Impossible Landscapes, about 2/3 of the front half of that book has been played with Ross and Caleb. Oh, cool.
RPPR,
Yeah.
yeah.
Nice.
I love that.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
yeah, it's out there certainly. Yeah.
Arc Dream Publishing has a YouTube channel. We don't have very many subscribers, but I have a bunch of playlists, and every time I find an actual playthrough, I have special playlists for reviews and for actual
Cool.
play.
Yeah.
We just
Yeah,
recorded,
Check it out.
before I came over here, I recorded another Delta Green game with Ross Payton and the people from Roleplaying Public Radio. So that'll be up, I don't know, in a week or two or whatever it takes. Roleplaying Public Radio.
Yeah.
They have a podcast, and then they have a bunch of actual play recordings.
Right. They're hysterical. They're great.
A very deep library
Yeah.
of stuff, and they've got most of the stuff I've done with them has not been Delta Green, but the last 2 things I've done have been Delta Green scenarios.
Yeah. So there's plenty out there to listen to.
Unpublished, so
Plenty.
you'll get something that no one's seen before.
Yeah. All right. What else? Patrick. Dealer's choice. Pick one.
Sure.
Thanks for that.
By the way, William, that's your name now.
Thanks, Shane. So you guys
Ginger,
mentioned
last name Fella.
revisiting Pisces. Dennis, I just heard you mention M Epic in
Yes.
passing.
Yeah.
So I got to ask, are there any plans to revisit the Great White North?
Well, since I live there now, maybe. Warren is a flighty creature. He's easy to frighten and will, startle and run off into the woods with his guitar. If you don't know, Warren Banks is the guitarist for the Darkest of the Hillside Thickets, and is a fantastic individual.
Yeah.
So that means
Just another string to put on the crazy board.
yeah, that means two of the 3 thickets have been involved in the creation of Delta Green. Torin did a ton of the art for the original Delta Green book, and Warren did all this other stuff. So, if I stomp all over Warren's stuff and go, "Hey, Warren, what do you think?" and he goes, "No," then probably not.
He's not going to say that.
Yeah, I know he won't. But it's his writing, so I don't want to.
And we have to ask.
Yeah,
But yeah. So yeah, we'll revisit that.
yeah, I'd love to do some Canadian stuff. It's
Especially since I think, didn't we work it into the canon that there is a connection between the program and
Yep.
MEPIC? So
Yep.
there's a lot of cross-border action.
yeah,
Yeah, I've kind of gone back and forth on whether to elaborate on some of that in Deep State, particularly, because I felt like that would be a better fit there than putting it into Pisces, which is going to be focused on the other side of the Atlantic.
Well,
Yeah.
Vancouver Island, like where I am, we have the Hum, where no one knows where that's from, and
Still there.
yeah, and we
They
have
moved from Taos.
we have no, it's pretty, it's like significant on the island. People talk about it a lot. The other one is feet washing up a lot, like, and they're all
with
left,
the shoes in them.
they're all left feet.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's all on Vancouver Island.
Yeah, there's a
Lots of good
there's a
stuff.
small island right off of Vancouver Island that was home for a really elaborate cult for a long
Yeah.
time, and
Yeah, and
That's
there's
where all the right feet are.
and there's a mountain.
there's a very uneven community kind of stomping around.
There's a mountain there called Detwiller Mountain, named after my great granduncle, who's a crazy artist who tromped across the Pacific Northwest drawing Indian totem poles. Named
Okay,
Frederick.
we're off the tracks again.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to hear about your parents.
I'm gonna write it all.
Next.
Got a question from.
Okay, we got a question from the internet.
All right, Internet.
Hello, internet.
Does she need a microphone, or is that picking you up?
I'd like to have one.
Yeah.
Hello,
We wanted-
Internet. Please don't hurt me.
Good luck with
Off
that.
camera.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of people asking about God's Teeth, so this question says, what can we expect from the God's Teeth campaign book? A product close to how Caleb originally ran the campaign with role-playing public radio, or a thorough reinterpretation to fit the narrative direction that Art Dream is taking Delta Green, similar to Impossible Landscapes? That's from Tyler on our Delta Green Street Team page.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can expect Caleb to cry a lot. You can expect his Twitter feed to kind of start showing
Passive
the signs
aggressive
of
statements of like Shane Ivey's not nice, and
yeah.
There'll be changes.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
They'll be awesome.
we wouldn't have approached him if what he had already come up with just on his first run of the game wasn't worth pursuing.
Right.
So it's so when we go in and work on it, it's going to be it's going to be to improve things. It's going to be to, but I doubt that you're going to see like a major restructuring. I mean, there are some elements of the plot, for instance, that will change to reflect there were like facts that were established in the timeline of the Handler's Guide after he did all his stuff with
Right.
God's Teeth.
It needs
So
to be
we'll
consistent.
reconcile those, but those things are going to be fairly minor, I think.
Yeah.
Shouldn't take more than a year, 18 months tops.
Yeah.
Well, I think the important bit here is that, and that this is always rough on writers that come in, is that writing for Delta Green, you end up in a room and then people beat you senseless for months, and whatever, you come out feeling.
Wait a minute. This is what happens to only the people who've come into Delta?
Oh yeah, no, Scott.
So what's been
Scott,
happening to me?
We've been super nice to you. What are you talking about?
Oh, yeah.
No, but we're used to it, is what I'll say.
We are.
Like
Yeah.
Bane said, you were born into
Yeah.
the room.
So to a lot of people it feels adversarial, and when in actuality, I'm when I hand in manuscripts, I expect to just be beaten about the head just the same as everybody else, and it makes the work so much better to hand it off
That was an option?
and have someone, you've done it before, and have someone like Shane or Scott or John or Greg look at it and give honest opinions. We don't want to be kissing each other's ass and going, "This is the greatest thing ever," and we never do. Never. It's never happened. So I love that process. I actually look forward to it now, which is kind of sick in a way, but it's nice.
Don't go
There's
in
an endorphin
don't go in his
release.
basement.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Next question.
Hi.
All right.
Hello. I kind of have a lore question. Where exactly did the ASOL in the game come from? Alphonse, Andrea, and Adam, like the creation process.
I will turn that over to Mr. Glancy.
Yipes. Can you please repeat the question about
where did A-Cell come from? Like, where did the idea for Adam and Alphonse so do you mean the idea of A-Cell itself or the characters and right?
Okay. As far as the characters of Alphonse, Adam, and
Andrea, I
guess I came up with Joseph Camp, and I guess I came up with Agent Adam as well. I don't remember. I mean, I think John had some input into those. He certainly is the guy who wanted to go with a conspiracy cell structure where not everyone in your cell knows everyone else outside the conspiracy. You only know somebody up the chain of command and one person down the chain. So that structure was definitely created by John Tynes. But as far as Adam and Alphonse go, those definitely came out of my end of the writing. Andrea was always left vague. It was just a throwaway name that John came up with and threw in the thing showing the structure, just added Andrea. And what was hilarious is that what I remember is people began speculating about who Andrea is.
Right. Yeah.
And there was that was the one that I always loved.
Yeah.
That immediately, in this kind of way that only happens, on the internet, Andrea suddenly becomes like if Jean Reno and you like took Jean Reno and Natalie Portman and smashed them together and created some hot murdery girl who would hotly murder people for Delta Green.
With red hair.
With red hair. And I just remember being...
And a long black trench coat.
Yeah, exactly.
It was the 90s. It was a different time.
It wasn't all that different.
There'd be a lot of slow-mo shots and maybe doves would be released in the background as she strides over a carpet of dead MJ-12 agents. And so, knowing that was what had been kicked around the Delta Green mailing list for years.
Well, I mean,
I loved coming up with something different.
Yeah, well, from the beginning, it was established that Andrea's remit was like communication security.
Yeah.
So where the cleaner concept came from, I have no idea. But I mean, we could look it up. It was on the Delta Green mailing list, which was super active and was an amazing.
Back to their patient zero.
Oh yeah, I'm sure I have.
I blame Scroggins.
Yeah, it was MIB.
It might have very well been.
It was MIB.
Mr. Kenneth Scroggins.
Yeah, we know where you are, Ken.
Yeah,
we know you.
But turning the hot assassin into an autistic, somebody on the autism spectrum who works for the NSA, and that I loved doing that. I was so happy that turned her into who's the woman who did the cattle squeeze
Temple
machine.
Grandin.
Went from what's her name in the Underworld films to Temple Grandin. Take that.
Did you know that the field of game design often attracts contrarian personalities?
You do now.
Tell us more.
That sounds like bullshit to me.
Jonathan Tweet told me.
Oh, now that really sounds like bullshit. Next question, please.
So I think
did that answer that question?
Yes, sir.
All right. Yeah. All right.
So we have.
Yeah, only a few more minutes.
I recently purchased Mr. Stolze's Mask of the Other audiobook from Audible. I was wondering if there's any chance that that Delta Green books would show up on Audible.
Yeah, I think that's pretty likely. We don't have immediate concrete plans. Where Aaron, our friend from the short film, has been doing sort of an experimental project, which we'll see what shape it finally takes and what the response is. Where he basically took the need to know quick start rules and had them recorded in an audio format, so you can just kind of listen along with that teaching you the essence of the game rules. So we that's our response to the idea of that was that it might be horrible or maybe not. Maybe it would be really super cool.
I will point out that there's a collection of short stories called Book of Cthulhu 2. And it's got guys in it like Cody Goodfellow and Laird Barron. For that, the editor of it, Ross Lockhart, actually picked up once more from the top the short story that I wrote for Dark Theaters about the raid on Innsmouth. And it turned up on Audible, and so of course I bought a copy to hear somebody read my story. Of course I did.
My made $160 minus $8.99.
Exactly.
They didn't comp you a book.
Of course they comp me a book. They didn't comp me on Audible.
That's a different animal.
But yeah, so at least that one's exists on Audible. But
Yeah, we did we commissioned I don't know, probably half a dozen short stories from Tales from Failed Anatomies. I think the book that Dennis wrote a few years ago with I think it was the
H.P. Lovecraft.
The podcast, literary podcast.
Yeah.
HPO literary podcast did those, and those were a lot.
Goodfellow contributed to that.
Yeah, they were awesome.
So yeah, I would love to go back with some of the works and do that.
Can I address? Thank you for getting Mask of the Other. I thought if you guys are looking for a narrator and sound guy who's good to work with, I recommend Trevor Dutton, who did Mask of the Other. I was really pleased with his work, and perhaps equally importantly, he did it on time. And
what the?
It was crazy.
Who is this guy?
He did it on time and well, and I paid him. I paid him good money. So that's the cheat code.
Is paying
the cheat code?
That was an option.
How about one last one from the internet? Okay. This is from Ethan, also from our Delta Green Street team. How do you use the history and personnel of Delta Green in your games? There's an awful lot of space dedicated to information that theoretically typical agents should never know. How do we work this into play?
Oh yeah, I mean you work it into play if you want to. There's I mean that sounds like a smart ass response, but I don't intend it as one. If you you're in theory your agents, if your agents are in the program, say your agents at the table have a control officer. Their control officer answers to
someone,
Abraham Mannon, in the program. So you've only got 1 degree of difference there. So if you want to have some of your characters, your players, interacting with people at the heart of things, that's not all that hard to imagine. We don't tend to do that in the published scenarios. Right, because the fact is, if you do that, that's going to be kind of a major campaign element. That changes things. Which, by the way, please do at your table. Right, we want you to go crazy and break this stuff. So if you want to do that, make it happen. It's not hard. They're right there on the page.
And I'll add. Can I interrupt?
You bet. It's not really an interruption if you ask permission, but go ahead.
So I had to interrupt to ask the permission. So
I'm gonna let you talk.
What I was going to say is that the way you could work this in, and this occurs to me off the top of my head, is that if your PCs are good, obedient doobies, all they're ever going to do is when they say, and don't look into who I go talk to when I get these missions, even though you're among the 2-3% most qualified investigators on the planet, even though your whole identity is based around uncovering mysteries, and even though you know that what's behind that door, you've always had this sneaking suspicion that there's a lot they're not telling you, some of which could probably save your life or the lives of your friends, or at least explain why you keep having to go do the same thing over and over despite all the... Just don't look, though. We're trusting you to be good, obedient soldiers who follow orders, even though the entire structure of Delta Green is premised on you being bold, badass mavericks who aren't afraid to bend rules when it suits us.
More importantly, they are not static. These NPCs don't exist in a void until your characters interact with them. They go out, they do things, they make mistakes, they get killed. They cause bigger problems than they intended to while trying to cover up little problems. They can be the entrance or the exit from any campaign, any operation. You could go investigate a body because the body's innards were found 200 yards away in a tree, and it was hollowed out like a gourd, and find out it's Abraham Manning. Suddenly, you're in the middle of Delta Green, whether you want to be or not. And
This wasn't even going to be a Delta Green op. I just caught this case on my day job.
Right. I mean, if you're an FBI agent, that could totally happen. So I guess the big thing that Shane was trying to hit his note is this is not a splat book. It's not fixed on a wall as a conspiracy and go, do not touch. In fact, smash this shit together. Have them kill each other. Yeah, it's human existence.
We built into the Handler's Guide a really kick-ass scenario where your agents could be recruited to try to free Agent Nancy from captivity.
Yeah,
and that would put them against a lot of people in Delta Green.
Yeah,
and it would be totally the right thing to do and totally the wrong thing to do. Play that out, man. I want to play that out.
I just and don't forget that we also have basically almost a 70-year history that we can fart around with.
And that's just in how long we've been writing it.
Yeah. It only feels that way.
The scenario ran for Ross Payton and Maddie and some of the other guys from RPPR was set in 1970, where they are breaking into a Pentagon warehouse to steal Delta Green's files that have been taken away because the organization is disbanded, and all the files are going off to the incinerator and going to be burned. And so the players are there to make sure, either the players are there for two things: steal files or make sure they actually are burned and don't get sent to the Majestic 12. So the only way to get into the well-guarded warehouse on a military base that they don't have access to is to make a gate.
Oh boy.
And you can, and the guy they bring in, the specialist they bring in 1970 to make the gate is Joseph Camp.
Right.
Just with fewer gray hairs and not as bad a limp. And he burns some POW points right in front of the players, and messes himself up to form the gate. They never know that, he's never introduced as Joseph Camp, just the professor.
Right.
And they have an interaction with him like that, but, in a time period before he's broken down and busted up, and before there's even such a thing as a reconstituted Delta Green.
Right.
Because you got the time period to play with, you can go back into the past and do stuff with Agent Adam before they're dead, or do stuff with other characters before they're dead. There's plenty of Majestic villains you could toss in.
Right. We definitely want you to do this. Like that was the explicit reason we wrote all this. Yeah.
Where it's at the end of each session you're like, okay, so now that your character is missing an eye and has all these spots in his memories, they don't want to send him in the field anymore, so he's got to recruit someone that's going to be his next character.
Right.
Work together and figure out who your maimed human wreck is gonna go say, hey, guess what you should do that I can't anymore.
It was awesome.
Look through whatever bonds you've still got left.
Yeah.
Unload it on your parents or your gym school, your gym teacher in high school.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming. This has been a lot of fun. Find us at booth. Find us at booth 1413 in the exhibit hall. Everybody have a great rest of the con.
Yeah. Thanks for coming.
All right.